Today we're going to be sharing the results of a blue panel light versus a yellow panel light lighting test for microgreens, specifically purple Kohlrabi, so stay tuned for the experiment. All right, I am just finishing up the last touches here on setting up a new lighting test, testing out these bam, blue lights versus our famous Relassi yellow paneled LEDs. So I'm really excited about this test because these blue lights right here were the very first tests that actually performed, oh my goodness, about 2.5 years ago, before we were actually on the grow. And we saw some really great growth out of these. And whenever I first actually had these, I remember them being all blue, but now looking at them, I'm noticing that they're actually a good mix of white and blue. So we're definitely in the higher spectrums here, around the 6500K probably with the white lights, and then up into the probably about 10,000K-ish range, maybe 9,000K for the blue light. So this is really exciting because, again, I got the best growth that I've seen from microgreens in the beginning from these blue lights, and I just have not tested them again. And I'm going to be comparing them against these Relassis, which in some of our tests we have shown to produce some of the best growth that we have seen. So we're going to do the best against the best, in my opinion, right now for the panel lights. So let me get this scooted against the wall and we'll talk a little bit more about this. Okay, before we get into this video, if you guys wouldn't mind, go ahead and smash that thumbs up button because it really does help out our channel. Also, if you guys would like to, click that subscribe button and the notification bell so that way you guys get notified when new videos come out. And if you guys are really interested in all this kind of information about lights, growing, and stuff like that, we have a great book called Becoming a Microgreen Master, which we actually have a cool poster of right over here on our wall in our grow space. So be sure to check that out. It's under $20. It's like under 16 bucks actually. And you can get all the information that we've learned over 2 years. So be sure to check that out.
What? Oh, Texas is pretty weird right now.
All right, sorry about that. We've been having a lot of thunderstorms out here in Texas, and the power cycled a few times because of it. I do want to say, though, that it's really nice that we have analog timers and not digital timers on our lights, because as you can see, all our lights did kick back on, versus if they were a digital timer, we'd have to come out here and reset them when the power cycles like that, versus with these mechanical timers, it really does a great job just kind of kicking back up wherever it left off. So I'm really happy that we have those, and it's a cool point to talk about those. Anyways, what I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to get some crops together, and I will see you guys in just a second so we can talk about what we're going to put under this and what this experiment's going to be about. All right, you guys, I have seeded all 4 of these trays with 15 grams of purple Kohlrabi from Johnny Seeds. And as you guys probably saw in the video, I was also doing prophylactic treatment with UV initially on the trays, the medium, and I followed it with the hydrogen peroxide spray as well. I just want to be really vigilant that I get no mold on these because I really want to focus on the light test, and I don't want to be dealing with any kind of damping off or any kind of fungal issues or any pathogens or anything like that. So I took a few extra steps on the prophylactic side so that we can really make sure these things are solid. So these trays are in the germination process now. What I've done is I've just kind of stacked them up in their little groups. The black trays are all together with the 15-pound paver on top, and the white trays are together with the 15-pound paver on top as well. That way we kind of keep these groups pretty similar in their growth, and then what's going to happen is in a few days when these are ready to go in the light, I will see you then.
Day 4.
All right, we are on day 4 for this purple Kohlrabi light experiment. These guys have not gone into the light yet, but today what I want to do is I want to pull these off of the shelf because I think after checking them last night, these are ready to go into the light. So usually what I'd do is I'd put these into a one-day blackout where you kind of allow these to stand up a little bit more, but in this case, after I saw them last night, I think they're gonna be good, so let's just double check that. All right, here's one side. Yeah, I think these are tall enough. Definitely tall enough. And here's the other side. Got a tiny little bit of dry out back here, but that should be absolutely okay. Oh yeah, these are all looking pretty even. Cool. So I think we've got a really good baseline across all of these. I mean, all the growth here looks fairly even. We do have a little bit of dry out towards the back, but it's not really affecting the crops. So the good news is everything is even on the growth, which is great. This means that this gives us a great baseline for this experiment, and we should have a good time here. Now, what I want to do is before I get these into the light and begin bottom watering these, first I want to show you guys a little bit of the readings using a lux meter as well as a par meter. So starting off with our lumens, so it looks like we are around 17,000, almost 18,000 lumens in some areas. Yeah, about 18,000 over here in the middle. So we're sitting about between 17,000, maybe 16,000 to 18,000 lumens on these blue lights. So that is actually really, really good. I mean, compared to our T5s over here, I mean, we're sitting at about 5,000, basically 6,000 lumens. And that's the minimum that I suggest for most shelves, is sitting around the kind of 6,000, 7,000 lumen range. And again, over here, we're about 18,000, between 16,000 and 18,000. So that's a pretty substantial jump there. Now, as for the yellow lights, it's actually peaking out here, so I need to change the reading. So we're at about 23,000 lumens, or lux, sorry, coming out of the yellow lights here, between about 20,000 to about 24,000 lux coming out of the yellow panel lights. So we have a pretty substantial jump there between the two of these. Now, we'll use my Apogee Instruments par reader here. Yeah, about 250 to 260 par for the blue lights. And then for the yellow panel lights, we're sitting around, oh, there we go, 350. So I almost touched 360 there for just a second. So yeah, we're between about 300 to 360 par. So again, the yellow lights are a bit more powerful. So I'm excited to see how this test is going to turn out. Now, in the past, what we noticed with these yellow panel lights is that they gave us really beautiful coloration on purple Kohlrabis. They brought out a lot more color than we usually see out of the daylight spectrum lights, which are the 6500K lights. But we didn't know if that was attributed to the temperature color, or which is the 3000K range that this is in, the more yellow red light, or if it's the fact that it was just a lot more par, a lot more light output. And then also with the blue lights, we got the strongest growth. So blue lights are generally what you want for your growth stage, and the red, yellow is more what you want for like a flowering stage, generally is what a lot of the pot growers say. So that's just kind of what I follow there. So let's go ahead and I'm gonna get these guys put into the light, and we'll get some bottom water added to them. So I'm gonna set the we'll do the two black trays down here on the blue lights, side by side. And then I put these two white lights up here.
White light.
Or sorry, these two white trays up here with the yellow panel lights. So now I need to add some bottom water to this. All right, so I'm gonna do about, let's see here, probably about 2 cups, since we did have a little bit of dry out. Let's see how that looks. I don't want to flood these things because they still are kind of waking up.
And that's just regular pH balanced water, right?
Yes. We got some cute little roots peeking through. Slowly lower that, and you can see how these finger tabs really do help out. The new Bootstrap Farmer finger tabs on their trays really help out with the watering process on the bottom watering. Okay, so these are in the lights. Now, one thing I will say about panel lights that I dislike versus say these LED bar lights is that on the panel lights, towards the edges, I'm getting a lot less light. Like you can see, it's just a little bit darker over here and back here, and especially you can kind of see it here as well, where it's really bright in the middle, and the more we get over here, you can see how that light goes away. So that's one of my issues with panel lights, is that I had to also put them really far up to get the correct amount of light dispersion. These shelves right now are placed at 14 inches apart, whereas most of our other shelves are placed at 10 inches. And that's because, as you can see, we have 3 lights spread out very well, so we get really good light dispersion across those T5 bar lights. So that's my one dislike about the panel lights, but overall, I mean, they do a great job growing. So or at least we're gonna find out. All right, so that is it for today. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna come back out later tonight. I'm gonna give these some more bottom water, and I will see you guys. I'll probably just do like some quick panning updates over the few days, and then we'll talk about, maybe in about 2 days, we'll do an update. We'll see where everything's at, or perhaps even tomorrow. We'll see. I'll perhaps see you guys tomorrow, perhaps in a few days. Stay tuned. What's up, you guys? So these plants have now been in the light for a full 24 hours, and they are peaking up nicely, and honestly, they're looking pretty cool. So what I need to do is, it's really kind of hard, if you guys kind of take a look over here at these blue ones, it's kind of hard to tell, you know, what's the coloration looking at like, because we have this really like light blue color, and the same thing kind of goes with this. I mean, this is a little bit easier to see on the yellow, but to make this a little bit more easy visually, I'm gonna pop on another one of these. Oh man, here we go with me trying to find, I need to label these at some point. So let's pull one tray of each. I'll pull the inside tray from both of these, and let's look at these. White is the yellow lights. Did I do this on the right one? Yeah, I did. And the black. So the black is the blue lights, and the white is the yellow kind of red lights. So I will say, I feel like the coloration is maybe slightly darker on the blue side. Overall, though, the growth is looking exceptional on both of these. The yellow ones do appear to be slightly taller, perhaps. Like they're standing up just maybe a pinch taller. But overall, what I'm loving is that all these guys are opening up. I'm seeing some really beautiful coloration in the stems. I feel like the stems on the blue lights might be a little bit darker, which is pretty exciting here. So this is kind of really early in the process. It's really hard to say, you know, what's the major difference here after only 24 hours. So I'm gonna go ahead and get these put back in, and I'm gonna continue with bottom watering these. And one thing I did notice last night that you might see right here is, if you kind of look at these trays on the sides, they're a little bit taller on the sides, and I feel like that's because they're maybe getting just a little bit less light on these sides, and they're starting to reach up just a little bit. So that's one thing to notice kind of on these yellow panel lights over here. All right, so again, I'm gonna go ahead and get some bottom water added to all of these. I'm probably gonna do about a cup. My medium seems to be nice and moist on the bottom two. And these feel like they're drying out a little bit faster, so I might give these just a pinch more water than the blue trays. So I will see you guys tomorrow with another update, and hopefully we see a little bit more results. See you then. All right, you guys, we are on day 8 for this purple Kohlrabi blue light versus yellow panel light experiment. And I've got to say, both of these crops are looking really, really nice. Starting with the blue lights, I'm seeing some really great growth here. And last night, whenever these lights kicked off, I saw some beautiful coloration on the cotyledons. And I can't wait to get these underneath some of the white lights so that you guys can see it. One thing I do want to point out real quick is I am noticing a little bit of almost like dimpling or divoting. I'm not sure the exact term I want to use there for that, but I'm noticing some little valleys basically within this tray where some areas are growing a little bit slower and some areas are growing a little bit faster. And overall, the crop has stayed pretty short. Now, the reason I think it stayed pretty short is because it's getting sufficient light. So what happens is whenever crops get sufficient light, generally they will stay a little bit shorter than if they are, say, like over in a light like this, where they'll have to stretch just a little bit taller into like the T5s, which is actually why we prefer lights that are just a little bit weaker. So now let's go ahead and take a look at the yellow lights real quick. Now, again, I'm noticing some great growth on these, and I'm noticing right here in the middle, we're having a very substantial low spot. And I think, again, this is where we're getting the most abundant amount of light. So these are staying very, very short because they're just really focusing on developing probably the root structure overall, and they don't have to reach at all for those lights. So they're probably just kind of hunkering down and really getting built up for the long term. So I'm not gonna pull these down and show them side by side yet because I feel like that'd be a little bit too soon. We got about 3 more days of growth before we're gonna harvest these. So I'm just gonna let these guys continue to grow, and I'm gonna keep on bottom watering them, and I will see you guys in a few more days.
Several days later.
All right, y'all, we are on day 10 for this purple Kohlrabi lighting test, which means that these have been under the light for 6 full days, and today is the seventh day that they are underneath the lights. So taking a quick glance at both of these, I'm really happy with the height and growth on both of them. I do notice a little bit of dimpling on the blue lights, as well as a tiny bit, it's more of a valley here in the middle on the yellow lights, but overall they're both looking great, and I'm ready to get these things harvested today. So it's pretty hard to tell how these look underneath these lights. Let's go ahead and get these pulled off the shelf, put onto our table, and see how they look side by side. Ooh, I'm seeing some good looking colors on all of these, really. Okay, so let's remember that the white trays were the ones underneath the yellow panel light, and then the black trays were the ones underneath the blue panel light. All right, so the first thing I'm gonna do is go ahead and show off this purple light here because I can see it casting a pretty crazy purple hue onto that. And let's also turn off this first blue light. Yeah, there we go. Now we got some actual correct color interpretations going here. So let's come in for first glance, starting with these blue trays. I am noticing right off the bat that this tray right here has a lot more purples, and especially the purple rim around the cotyledons. I mean, I'm just really loving the coloration on all of these, though the back of the tray seems to be a little bit lighter in color, as well as the front of the tray. Now my guess is the reason that this is probably happening is because these were the areas that received less light versus the middle, which received the most light. Now taking a look at the second tray, I am noticing this side over here is a lot lighter in green than this side over here. So this tells me that this was our outside tray on the shelf. It was probably the one sitting right here. And this was the row right over here that was sitting furthest from the light. And it makes sense that these are the lightest in color because what we notice is the more intense the color and intensity of the lights, the more intense the coloration of the cotyledons will be. So again, taking a look at this tray, I am seeing some really beautiful little purple rims, and especially here, that little veining right in the middle of those cotyledons. And over here, I'm seeing some really, really nice dark purple cotyledons mixed out throughout this tray. Kind of taking a look at these stems, I am seeing some gorgeous purple coloration, and the same is going for this first tray over here. So overall, I'm very happy with this. Outside that tiny little bit of dimpling that I'm seeing in this tray, I would have preferred for this to be a little bit more uniform in its growth. But again, these panel lights don't do the best at light dispersion compared to the long bar lights. So that's kind of to be expected with these. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the yellow lights. Now these are the top lights, the yellow panel Relassi lights. And again, I am seeing some gorgeous, gorgeous coloration on these. I'm seeing a lot of those purple rims around the cotyledons, as well as that little purple veining in the middle. And then you've got those cotyledons right there that are just that super gorgeous deep purple. Same thing I'm seeing towards the edges. It's lighter in color over here with less veining compared to the middle where the light was more intense. And I can actually feel the difference in the crop strength. So generally whenever there's a lot more light intensity, they're gonna grow a lot more firm, a lot more solid compared to if they're stretching a little bit like they would underneath these T5s where they have to go reach a little bit harder for the lights. They will be a little bit softer in their structure. They're not gonna be as strong in that stem. They're gonna be a little bit taller, and we're definitely seeing that over here. As for that second tray, I am noticing this super dip right over here, but this is where I'm getting some like really firm growth and some of the craziest coloration on this purple Kohlrabi tray. Overall, again, same kind of pattern here where towards the edges, the color is lighter. And then in the middle, we're seeing a lot more of that purple veining, a lot more of that purple around the rim of the cotyledons. Let's go ahead and take a look in the middle here. I am seeing some gorgeous purple on the stems for both of these trays. And I can definitely feel the same kind of thing. Over here, feels a little bit softer. They're not as strong. Over here in the middle, I mean, they are just firm and bouncing right back into position as soon as I kind of mess with them a little bit. So that's it for first glance. What I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna get all of these harvested, and as I harvest, I'm gonna pull some samples from each group, and we're gonna set those side by side on this little white tray right here so that after I harvest, we can compare the harvest weights as well as the coloration side by side, and then we'll do a taste test as well. That way we can figure out what the difference really is between all of these lights. So I finished harvesting all 4 of the trays, and I've set aside some from each group so that we can check out the appearance and taste in just a moment. First, let's go ahead and talk about the harvest weights. Starting with the blue panel lights over here, which is this bag. The first tray had a harvest weight of 162 grams, and the second tray had a harvest weight of 175 grams, which makes our average for both trays 168.5 grams. As for the yellow trays, this is the yellow panel light up here. Not yellow trays, they were the white trays technically. But for the yellow panel lights, we had one tray that had a harvest weight of 166 grams, and the other tray was 171 grams, which also equaled the exact same average as the first group of 168.5. We have never in the entire history of all of our videos had two lights with different spectrums and intensities equal the exact same harvest weight. So that is pretty phenomenal. So for this test, obviously there is no winner in harvest weight. Both of the trays in both of the groups equaled the exact same averages. So now it comes down to flavor and appearance. Let's go ahead and start off with the appearance. These two right here are the blue trays. And taking a look at both of them, I am loving the deep, deep purples down in these stems. I'm seeing a lot of purple in the cotyledons. This group was a little bit shorter. It's probably, I pulled from the middle of the tray on this group perhaps versus the slightly more towards the edges on these other groups. So this one does appear to be a little bit shorter. But nonetheless, it is some gorgeous, gorgeous product. I really love the purples that I'm seeing in these cotyledons. I love the purple rim on them. Overall, this is something I'd be very happy to share with customers and my family and friends to have them eat. Underneath, if I get my hand to stop shaking, you can see that we do have some really nice purples underneath these cotyledons. So overall, again, I really love the appearance on this first group. Now the second tray for the blue group, again, I'm seeing some really beautiful coloration, especially down here at the base of these stems with some deep, deep purples. Underneath these cotyledons, I am seeing some nice purples, though it is a little bit lighter in this group. So again, this one might have been slightly more towards the edge that I pulled from. But overall, I love the appearance of this crop. Now onto the yellow panel lights. Right off the bat, I am noticing a lot more purple underneath the cotyledons, especially, I mean, you can just see right here on top and down in the stems, you can see how much more intense those stems are in their purple coloration. One thing I did notice on both of the yellow panel lights is this kind of curling that's happening in the stems here. So that's one thing that I didn't really see in the blue lights as much as I did in the yellow panel lights, which means these are probably trying to stay a little bit shorter. That's why they were doing this wavy motion to keep their height a little bit shorter and not so close to that light, but still giving us some decent stem height. I do think the appearance on both of these groups is absolutely stunning. I love the coloration in these cotyledons. I'm still getting that beautiful purpling around the edge, that veining. And again, underneath, I am noticing a lot more of those deep, deep purples underneath. Let's go on to the second tray right here for the yellow panel lights. And again, same thing. I'm seeing some really beautiful coloration down in these stems. Underneath, I'm getting a lot of that beautiful purple coloration that I love to see in purple kohlrabis. I mean, that is just absolutely gorgeous right there. And then on top, again, I'm seeing some really nice purple veining and some purple edges on these purple kohlrabis. So overall, first glance for appearance, I would have to go with the yellow panel lights being the winner of the appearance group. I just love, 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 love the deep, deep purples that we got out of those yellow panel lights. So I'm very happy with that. Now it comes down to a taste test. Let's go ahead and kick it off over here with the blue group. I'm gonna give a little bit to Mandy, and then I'll get a little bit to myself. And we're just gonna leave a little bit on the tray. Immediately, I'm noticing a lot of that brassica flavor. A lot of that brassicas have like a pretty eggy flavor to them. I'm not really catching any bitterness. Overall, I think that was an incredible flavor from that first group.
Had a good crunch too.
Yeah, I had a really nice crunch was what Mandy was saying, and I would have to agree with that. Let's jump over the yellow. Yeah, let's jump over the yellow. So immediately I can kind of feel how much crunchier these stems are, so I have a feeling this is going to have a bit more crunch to it than the blue panel lights. If I can get these separated, these little curly stems are grabbing onto each other pretty well. Immediately, it's a lot crunchier. I feel like the brassica flavor was a little less intense while the crunch was a bit higher. And I'm also noticing a slight spice to it. Did you catch that?
A little bit, yeah. It was very mild.
Yeah, very mild spice to it. So very interesting. We had a little bit less of the brassica, a little bit of a spice, but a lot more crunch than the first group. Second of the blue lights. Now you can wash your microgreens if you want. Honestly, we've been eating unwashed microgreens forever. As long as you have good sanitation practices, you don't really have to worry about it. Still getting a nice crunch from this. Nice eggy flavor. No bitterness. Overall, I think it's a very nice flavor. And personally, I do like it a little bit less crunchy like this, where it's still crunchy, but not as crunchy so far as the yellow groups. I also did catch a slight spice that like I noticed in the yellow panel light from this blue panel light. So now we have one that did have that slight spice in the blue panel group. All right, and last little flavor taste test here. I don't think it was a lot woodier. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Mandy was saying she got a really big burst of flavor initially, and I would have to agree. It was a very big amount of that brassica flavor. A lot more than I noticed in the other tray that we tried out of the yellow group. So big flavor, a little bit woodier. Not sure that I love that woody, but I do at the same time. I mean, it is a nice texture to have in salads and stuff like that and on burgers. But I do prefer probably the panel lights for this slightly softer texture to them. All right, so overall winner in flavor, that is really tough. That's a tough call. I really like the crunch and the flavors from both of the panel lights, but also I like the flavors a lot from these blue panel lights and the slightly softer texture. I really think that this would boil down to personal preference at this point. What do you prefer? Nandy said that she feels like it was a draw, and I would have to honestly agree with it. I really like all of the groups. There's nothing that I disliked. I didn't notice any bitterness out of any of these. I did notice slightly more woody flavors on this side, and again, slightly softer textures on these blue lights. But overall, the flavors are just incredible across the board, and I'd be very happy to eat any of these. So I hate to say it, so far we're at a draw and a draw. We're a draw for harvest weight and a draw for flavor. I think that flavor is just going to come down to personal preference there. All right, now, in appearance. Okay, so we did have a winner. So technically, the purple or the yellow lights did have the better appearance, in my opinion. So I guess that would really give them the advantage so far in this. So let's recap real quick. Winner in overall harvest weight, it was a draw. There was no winner because both of them equaled 168.5 grams average for both of the trays. As for the winner of appearance, we did choose the yellow panel lights as being the winner there. I just love the purple intensity that we get out of those yellow panel lights, and I really think that those did win on that. And as for the flavor, again, it was a draw. So overall winner for this experiment, I would have to choose the yellow panel lights just because they did have that advantage in the appearance. Now what we need to talk about is how much it costs to run each one of these lights. So I need to do some calculations because I haven't done that yet. All right, so let's talk about what these actually draw. So the yellow panel lights, what you'll first notice is that these have a lot wider of a panel compared to the blue panel lights, which have a much shorter light spacing, and I actually have to use 3 of these blue lights per shelf and only 2 of these yellow panel lights. So that really means that a single yellow panel light will hit 2 trays, whereas the blue lights, I have to use 1.5 blue lights to hit both trays. So let's talk about the actual power draw. So for the yellow panel lights, they draw 57.7 watts actual, which is equivalent to 0.46 amps. As for the blue lights, these draw, let me kick it on for fun colors, these draw 34.8 watts or 0.27 amps. Now since we're using 2 of them, if I calculate 1.5 panel lights, we're at 52.2 watts drawing 0.4 amps per group. All right, so I have calculated all of the energy drawing for both of these, what it costs per day. So let's start off with the yellow panel lights right here. So again, these draw 57.7 watts and 0.46 amps per day. And we run these lights for 17 hours per day, which comes out to 0.9809 kilowatt hours per day. Now what that boils down to in cost per day is 0.117 cents. So I'm gonna round it up to 12 cents per day. That means for the entire duration of the 7 days of growing, it was 84 cents for these yellow panel lights to be running. As for the blue panel lights, again, these consume 52.2 watts and 0.4 amps. That means over the duration, that means that they consume during a 17-hour day, 0.8874 kilowatt hours, which boils down to a cost per day of 0.106 cents, and I'm gonna round that up again to 11 cents per day. That means over the duration of the 7-day grow, that was 77 cents. So 77 cents for the blue lights and 84 cents for the yellow panel lights. Now this is pretty negligible, especially when you consider that you divide that number in half for each one of these for each tray. So it was really about 42 cents of extra cost for the yellow trays, and then 77, oh goodness, quick math, I failed at. So what's 77 divided by 2? Is 38.5 cents per tray for the blue panel lights. So the blue panel lights did cost less, but again, I mean, we're talking a very, very small margin between these 2 of these, so I don't really think that's a huge factor, but the yellow lights do consume more power. All right, so that is it for the actual cost of how much these cost to run. Now, I don't have the cost on these blue panel lights because I bought these about 2.5 years ago. and they don't sell them on Amazon anymore. I'm still trying to search down some good blue panel lights, and I haven't really found any. I found one, but I ordered it and it was very cheaply made. It looked like somebody made it at home, and that's not something I want to recommend to people because I don't want your grow space to catch on fire or anything. I want you guys to have solid products that you can trust. That is it for this video. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. Again, I think that these groups were so close on all of these. I was really expecting a lot more difference, but I'm really excited because this means that between a blue spectrum light and a much lower yellow spectrum light, we're getting pretty similar growth across the board. And really it kind of boiled down to light intensity. What we noticed is that where the light was the most intense, we had a lot shorter crops with a lot more vivid coloration. And again, the cost with LEDs are just so minimal that over a 7-day period of growing, it was less than $1 for 2 trays, which means, I mean, it's less than 50 cents per tray to grow these and have that added cost of that beautiful crop. I'm sorry, I heard a bird outside. It confused me. I thought an alarm was going off somewhere. The mockingjay, we got a mockingjay living on our porch, and we don't have the heart to shoo it away. So
It has 4 eggs.
it has 4 little beautiful eggs, and we're just gonna leave it there. So anyways, that's what we sometimes hear. What I'll do now is I'm still doing some, we're gonna harvest these sunflowers probably tomorrow for this. We'll see the results on that. And then what I'll do is we'll start putting these blue and yellow panel lights up against some of these purple Barinas, as well as these T5s that we suggest to everybody, which is the normal T5 Barina 6500K lights. Now, one thing I do want to say is a slight disadvantage, and I did talk about this at the beginning, is how much extra shelf height these panel lights are costing us. We have to run these at 14 inches versus our normal shelf height, which you can see right below it, at 10 inches. So, I mean, it doesn't look like that 4 inches makes much of a difference, but actually it really does because, again, we have to get those lights further away since they are little box lights. Their light dispersion just isn't as great as putting 3 of these Barinas, in my opinion, or 2 of the T8 Barinas on a shelf, much more spaced out with that long bar, and you're gonna get that great dispersion across the entire tray. Like you can see on these trays right here, it is just flat all the way across. We're not seeing where the ends are stretching or anything like that. So that is one reason I really do like the Barinas and the bar lights in general, is that you just get much better light dispersion. So again, that is it for the end of this video, guys. I hope that you enjoyed it, and if you did, please be sure to give us a thumbs up. If you dislike this video, give us a thumbs down. If you guys have any questions or comments, please be sure to leave them in the section below. Also, be sure to check out our book, Becoming a Microgreen Master, where we talk about lights, grow mediums, how to build a rack, how to grow in a pumpkin, what our grow space is like, how we run our shelves in our grow space, what we would do if we were gonna make this a fully commercial grow space. It just answers a lot of questions that we commonly get, and it's for the price of less than 4 trays. So I think that we just really try to bring you guys a lot of value in that book. So be sure to check that out if you guys have a lot of questions around microgreens, or if you guys just want to get into it and you guys want to start off successful. I really do think that that book will help you guys get on the right foot. I forgot about our social media. Our Instagram and our Facebook are both @OnTheGrowFarms, and our website is www.onthegrow.net. Thank you guys so much. Have a great day and keep on believing.